my lovely readers, welcome back to Reader's Retreat. My name's Victoria and today's video will be my first full book review. So this video is going to be a full book review of The Court of Miracles by Kester Grant. I read this last year, its year of publication, and absolutely adored it. It was one of my favourite reads of the year, and I'm so excited to be reviewing it for you today because it really is a fabulous book. Hi guys, Editing Victoria here. Doing this on voiceover because I didn't even realise I could, and I think it's really cool. So I didn't give you a breakdown of how my book reviews all format. I'm using a system called CAWPILE that was originally created by G at Book Roast. I'll leave a link to her channel down below so you can check it out yourself. It basically was a system that she devised to help give star ratings for books. You break down your book into different categories, those categories being characters, atmosphere, writing, plot, intrigue, logic and enjoyment, hence being CAWPILE. And then it somehow magically, through mathematics, how she's worked that out I will never know, creates a star rating for you between 1 and 5, obviously. You give each of the categories a number between 1 and 10, 1 being absolutely diabolical and 10 being absolutely phenomenal, and then it comes out with a star rating for you. And it's a brilliant system if you're as completely indecisive as I am when it comes to star rating your books. So it's brilliant, and I think it also seems to be a great format for a book review because it, like I say, it helps me break down my thoughts into those categories, so it gives me a pattern to follow. I hope it's as easy for you to comprehend as it is for me. If not, let me know down below and I'll try and change it up a bit in my next review. But I really like how this works, so I hope you do too. A Court of Miracles is a Les Miserables retelling, and really that was all I needed to know going into it. So I was really excited when I heard that this one was going to be released because I'm a huge Les Mis fan anyway. The original by Victor Hugo is a bit intense if you're not used to his writing style, but it's just a brilliant story. So to then hear that it was going to be retold was really exciting to me. This particular edition is absolutely stunning. The cover itself, absolutely gorgeous, but under the dust jacket is just as beautiful with gold foiling, and it says "Take what you will," and there's a spine as well. Absolutely gorgeous. Every inch of it is beautiful. There's a really nice image on the back here of the way the city is built up, and the blurb, which is quite minimalistic for a lot of retellings actually. To protect themselves, the city's wretched formed 9 guilds: thieves, beggars, assassins, gamblers, mercenaries, smugglers, prostitutes, opium eaters, and men of letters. The lords of each guild sat together to form the miracle court, bound as brethren by laws that they had written. So upon reading that, I was really excited to see how this story would develop, and it is absolutely brilliant in the way that it's all set out, and really imaginative as well. Actually, it's familiar without being too samey compared to the original, and it's also different enough for you to feel like it's something completely new at the same time. So I'll read you a little bit from the insert on the inside. There's 3 tags to this: liberty, family, and treachery. So, liberty. 1828, and the citizens of Paris still mourn in the wake of their failed revolution. Among them, in the dark alleys and crumbling cathedrals of the city, the most wretched have gathered into guilds of thieves, assassins, and worse. Together they are known as the Court of Miracles. Family. Eponine has lost more than most. When her father, Thénardier, sells her sister to the Guild of Flesh, she makes a promise to do anything she can to get her sister back, even if that means joining the Court of Miracles, the very people keeping her sister a slave. Treachery. Eponine becomes perhaps the greatest thief the court has ever seen, finding a place among them and gaining another sister, Cosette. But she has never forgotten the promise she made. If she's to have any hope of saving one sister, she will have to betray the other. This beautiful reimagining of Les Miserables tells the stories of your favourite characters and what might have happened if the French Revolution had not come to pass. So, as you can imagine, it is quite in-depth, but it's so easy to follow because, like I say, it feels new whilst also being familiar, which is a brilliant way of doing it. So, characters then. The main focus character-wise in this story is Eponine's story and her quest really to get her sister back, because her father, Thénardier, sells her off to one of the Lords of the Guild, the Guild of the Flesh, which basically is the Guild of Prostitutes. So they are basically drugged up to the eyeballs and prostituted for money. Pretty much like the ladies in Les Mis at the beginning, but you see Fantine instead of Eponine. So Eponine vows to go on a quest to find her sister and bring her home, and it basically everything she ensues on the way. She finds a way in through the Guild of Thieves and becomes one of the best they've ever seen, and basically it's her quest to get her sister back but also bring down the Court of Miracles because they are corrupt, basically. So she forms part of the rebellion to try and bring them down. The characters in this are very, very well rounded. They are, like I say, familiar not only in name but also in quite really clever characteristics, where you see Eponine being quite a strong individual and a strong independent woman in Les Mis. She is also that in this as well, and it's actually really empowering to read because she takes all of this on herself, and it's her discovery of who she is and what she's capable of as much as the actual quest itself. So it's a really, really cleverly interwoven kind of subplot, if you like. Cosette is everything you would expect Cosette to be. She's young, she's beautiful, she's, I don't want to say simple, but she's not the brightest button. But then she isn't in Les Mis either. She very much relies on her beauty, and that basically is played on by other characters in the story. So it's again an aid into them getting where they need to be and doing what they need to do, having this beautiful girl that can kind of worm her way in. She does become more and more empowered as the story goes on, which is really interesting to see. She's a little bit annoying to begin with because she is a bit of an airhead, but then, like I say, as the story goes on, you actually grow to appreciate her and her journey of discovery as well, actually. So yeah, it's quite nice in that you see a friendship develop, but then in the events of the book something happens and that relationship dissolves, unfortunately. So yeah, it was a bit of a twist that I wasn't expecting when that friendship dissolved, but you can understand why it has to happen. And the lords of the court are very distinguishable as well, each one of them having their own sort of fully rounded and distinguished kind of attributes, really. And the Lord of the Guild of Thieves actually takes Eponine under his wing and almost adopts her as the father that she never had growing up. So that's a nice relationship that's explored there as well. But then the discoveries that Eponine makes along the way kind of changes her opinion of him in quite a dramatic way, and that again is really cleverly interwoven into the quest as a whole, because you don't see it coming, and it's kind of one of the twists that really did kind of take me by surprise. So I was really intrigued the whole way through. That's pretty much all I can say on characters. Moving on to atmosphere. Every inch of this story is steeped in atmospheric writing. It's beautifully written with so much depth. It almost immerses you in how real it feels. You're climbing over the rooftops with a thief, stealing bits and pieces from houses of the rich, and every second that you're reading these kind of moments, it's like you're there and you're doing it yourself. You're not just looking from the outside in, you're fully immersed in it. I saw myself as, you know, Eponine's friend, traveling alongside her. So, you know, it was really lovely to feel so immersed into a world that I recognised but also felt brand new at the same time. The way things worked felt different, but also not too different in that it was hard to grasp. So everything was explained, and the atmosphere of the court when they convene, the brethren, the sort of hatred and respect each of the lords had for each other, and, you know, the atmosphere that it created just literally entering the room when the court is convened is almost sort of, I don't know how to explain it. It's sort of like, it feels like you've entered somewhere really important and you're kind of standing in the corner of the room because you don't want to be seen, but at the same time you're seeing and hearing everything that's going on. So it's, the atmosphere is completely immersive, is basically what I'm trying to say with that. So I'm also trying to keep it as spoiler free as I can. It's just very cleverly done, and very realistic, whilst also being quite brilliantly fantastical at the same time. Moving on to writing. I hadn't read anything by Kester before this. To be completely honest, I didn't even know she existed. I'm not sure if this is her debut novel or not. I will look that up and leave a message up here. But yeah, I'm really kind of in awe of the imagination that this took to write. Like I say, with the idea that it's after the French Revolution's failed, so you get that vibe, but then everything that goes into that with the court and the brethren and the lords and the 9 guilds and all of that kind of thing, it kind of amazes me that somebody actually sat down and thought of it, and to retell it in a way where it feels completely different yet still familiar, which is quite a contradictory sentence, I know, but it's the best way I can describe it, really. It's quite challenging language at times because it's French. It's not written in French, it's written in English, but some of it has a very, very French feel to it. So you have to be slightly familiar with French and the language to kind of add to the atmosphere, really, and to understand exactly where you are and who it is that's talking and things like that. So it's really clever, but also quite challenging as a reader, because if you're not familiar with the way a French person talks, for example, you might find some of the language a little bit difficult to get on with. But for me, I think I just kind of took it on the chin, if you like, because I was so immersed in the actual story itself that I didn't notice how difficult it was. I could quite easily form the words, and the pronunciation didn't really bother me because I wasn't trying to read it out loud. I did have the audiobook, which was hugely helpful, in the way that if I did stumble across something that I wasn't familiar with, because I tended to read a chapter for myself and then carry that on with the audiobook for a couple of chapters. But then if there's something that I read in that chapter that I didn't understand, I would then go through the audiobook and say, oh, okay, so that's how you say that and that's what that means. So it was really quite helpful to have that. I'm really impressed actually with the style of writing in this, because I was quite concerned with it being based on the French Revolution and 1828, because I'm not really a historical fiction fan, but that in no way felt like this. I guess really atmosphere and writing kind of merge into one when it comes to this story, because I've mentioned atmosphere quite a lot when actually talking about writing. So it's kind of like one works with the other hand in hand, and that's what really kind of pulled me in with this story and kind of immerse you in this world. So I was really, really pleased and warmed by the ease of the writing, really. Plot wise, it's genius, basically. The fantastical element of having the protagonist go on a quest, because of the familiarity of the characters and the story that's underpinned, whilst this one is overlaid by that, it in no way hindered what I think Kester was trying to do, because there was a familial kind of plot as well as an adventurous plot and the relationships added to the plot, in that every person that Eponine comes across has a part to play in her overall quest. So each one of them in turn becomes integral to her success, basically. None of them really took a sideline and kind of appeared with nothing to do. So that was really impressive to me. You can get characters that kind of are introduced, but then that's it. They don't really have anything else to do. They're just tagging along for the ride, in which sense you would think that might be the perception of the reader. But in this, it's kind of, although you are on the outside looking in, every character has something to do with the overall plot, and none of them kind of disappear by the end of it. You understand at every level what each of the characters has done to get her to that point. So yeah, I've really enjoyed the fact that nobody really was missed out, if you like. So the plot developed at quite a quick pace after the initial sort of explanation of the way things worked and what was going to happen really in the rest of the book with regards to like Eponine going on a quest. After all of that, the info dump, if you like, at the beginning, it did pick up the pace. So that in itself kept you going with it, kept you turning the pages, because it wasn't predictable at any point. So you were always ready for the next bit of action. You were always eager to find out what she would discover next, or who she would meet next, or the kind of challenges and dangers even that she would come up against and how she would deal with that. And I love the fact really that she's given the independence to do that. She finds her own independence and finds the confidence to do it herself, because she does question that in the beginning. And it's that journey of discovery for herself that really did pull the story along. So with each new character that was introduced, gave her that little bit more strength and that little bit more kind of guidance in the best way to do things. And it really was easy to follow, in that although there were always lots of things happening and the atmosphere kind of gripped you from the word go, the story never really stopped. You knew where it was going to go, or where you anticipated it would go. I'm really kind of in awe of the level of complexity to the plot, because there were twists and turns in there that I wasn't expecting, and at the same time I knew the kind of pattern that Les Mis had, and you know how it all ends up, and some of that does come to pass, but it's so different in content that you don't need to have known Les Mis to understand what's going to happen in this story. So it does give you that kind of sense of understanding in the way of characters if you've read Victor Hugo's Les Mis, but other than that, it's not necessary for you to continue with the plot of this story, because this really is a standalone. In that sense, it can stand up on its own 2 feet as a story that somebody could pick up that's never even heard of Les Mis and still love it. So that's testament to the writing, it's testament to the plot. Intrigue. There was never a moment in this book where I lost interest. Never a page, never a second. I was attached to the characters, I was immersed in the atmosphere, I was carried by the plot beautifully, and I needed to know what was going to happen every time I turned a page, and I didn't want to stop turning the pages. And when I reached the end, it was one of those situations where I put it down and I'm like, right, now what do I do? Because I got lost in it. And that sort of level of intrigue is quite hard to maintain, really, especially with a story that is so familiar to a lot of people like Les Mis. To retell that in a way that's so different was just brilliant, and the intrigue in that to begin with before I even picked it up was enough for me. So I was absolutely intrigued the entire way through, and that never faltered. Intrigue and interpretation really for me are the same thing. I interpreted this as something that was rich in characters, it was rich in plot, it was rich in writing, and I took away from it a real kind of story of self-discovery. To maintain that sort of level of interest and that sort of level of intrigue all the way through from the first page to the last is brilliant, and I can't recommend it enough. Logic. Every bit of the story is believable. There's not one point there that I thought, hang on a minute, that doesn't add up. I think really logic wise I haven't really got much to say, because there wasn't any points that didn't feel feasible. Each of the guilds was realistic in the way that you could and understand how and why it was created, and each one of them felt real in a way that it could happen. Society could form these sorts of groups, and each one would have their own individual attributes that you would fall into, and it's completely feasible and acceptable. From the outside looking in, it's just brilliant, and there's not one moment in this story that any of that slipped for me. Knowing as well the history of Les Mis, it kind of helps make that all the more believable. A lot of people really did hit rock bottom, and these people are known as the wretched, so the wretched form the guilds, and the guilds form society. There's a really clever level of logic to this. You can see that some of it is fantastical. It would never happen, but it could at the same time. So the level of logic for me was really clever. And enjoyment. No surprise that this was a 5-star read for me. Every page for me was just amazing, and I want everybody to read this book because it's just brilliant. And like I say, you don't have to have had any experience with Les Mis to pick this up and appreciate it, in my opinion, because it's different enough for it to feel like it stands on its own 2 feet. Even having read Victor Hugo's version as many times as I have, I can see that you don't need to do that. It just added a level of complexity and a level of understanding for me that just enriched my experience all the more. But like I say, it's not 100% necessary, so that in itself is a huge achievement in my opinion, and I think Kester Grant should be really proud of that, because I think you can see where she pulls her inspiration from for each of the key points in the plot. everything is so well explained that it's not kind of reliant on the fact that you already know that story. It doesn't rely on it in any way. It just pulls bits and pieces from it to make it familiar. Every single page of this book for me was just brilliant, and I couldn't wait to pick it up and read more every night, and I couldn't wait to explore France in the way that Eponine does, because you see this beautiful city through her eyes and she loves it, so then you love it as a reader, and it's just stunningly written. It really, really is, and I can't gush about it enough. I absolutely love it, and I really do want everyone to read it. So my enjoyment was absolutely on point all the way through this. Characters, I gave a 9. Atmosphere, I gave a 10. Writing, I gave a 9. Plot, I gave a 9. Intrigue, I gave a 9. Logic, I gave a 10. And enjoyment, I gave a 10, which came out at a 5-star, published in 2020 and read in 2020. I am very, very happy to have read this book, and to be honest, it's due a reread. It may turn out that I do reread this sometime soon, because I really did absolutely love it first time round, and it was a 5-star read. That does form my CAWPILE review for A Court of Miracles by Kester Grant. If you hadn't guessed already, I really loved it. Might not be the same story for everybody, so please do comment down below if you have read it and if you liked it, and if you didn't. Thank you very much for hanging out with me for a little while today. I've really enjoyed my first book review. I really do hope that you pick up and let me know what you think. As always, I will leave links to all of my socials down below. Come find me, let's be friends, let's talk, let's chat. I will see you in my next video. Bye.